ask and pray that you would be with us and that you would bless us over this 2-week prophecy school, that you would guide our thoughts, help us to have a clearer revelation of who Jesus is and who we are. We know that it's your will that we might be transformed. And even though, Father, as we assess ourselves, we may not think that we are the sons of God, but even though it does not yet appear what we shall be, we know that when we meet you, when we meet us, Saviour, that we will be like him. Help us to endeavour to reach that goal through the study of your word. Please be with us this morning and bless us, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Welcome everybody. So as you know, we're having 2 prophetic classes a day. I'll be taking the morning class, Brother Tabo's the early evening class. And I want to tell you up front, I don't really have a direct direction in which I'm going. I have a rough idea. I want to deal with some issues about the judgment, but depending on where our questions go, we may discuss some other things as well. So I've given you a short handout. We may cover this today and into tomorrow. It covers a couple of issues. Some of them issues that we addressed at the prophecy school last weekend. And because it seemed to cause quite a lot of interest, I wanted to just review some basic things. I don't know everybody. I don't know where you are in your understanding of this prophetic message. So maybe we'll just spend a little bit of time reviewing just some really basic information. So we're going to have a look at a reform line and make sure that we all understand these waymarks in a similar way. So everybody knows, hopefully, on a reform line, we begin it at the time of the end. And we normally mark it with the term close of probation at the end. By the way, remember this is a study, so we're supposed to be dialoguing together. So please don't make this into a monologue. Is this okay here, or do you want me to move it, or is it all okay? Yeah. So the time of the end, where do we get this term from? You need to speak out loud, because otherwise it doesn't work. One person either raise their hand or speak loud, so that we don't have 2 people speaking. Daniel where? Daniel 11. Verse? 40.
And at the time of the end, the king of the north, king of the south will push them to the king of the north.
Where else do we get the term? Verse.
Towards the end.
Daniel 12 towards the end.
Daniel 12:4.
So someone read that?
But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book even to the time of the end. Many shall run to it, and knowledge shall be increased.
What is the sealing of the book in Millerite history?
When?
What is it? What does it mean? When we think about Millerite history, and it talks in Daniel 12:4, but thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and sealed the book even till the time of the end. What is that sealing referring to?
Daniel 8:14.
Understanding of what?
Sealing up the understanding of closing up
It's a sealing or closing of what? It's just a sealing or closing of what? Tiffany says 8:14. What is being sealed? Okay, so we know that, but specifically. What's being sealed? It says seal up the book until the time of the end. Or at the time of the end, what has been sealed? We know it's the book, but what has been sealed? Tiffany says 8:14. Millerite history, they're not addressing 11:40 to 45. Someone said something?
I know in Daniel 8:17 it talks about sealing up the vision until the time of the end.
Which verse? 8:17 you said?
Daniel 8:17.
So read that to us.
So he came near where I stood, and when he came, I was afraid and fell upon my face. But he said unto me, Stand, O son of man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision.
So it doesn't talk about the sealing there, but it does mention the time of the end.
But that would be revealed, or it will be done.
What would be then?
Well, Daniel
The fulfillment, you're saying?
Daniel 8:14 says, "Then shall the sanctuary be cleansed." And they didn't understand at that point that Christ is leaving the holy place and entering the most holy.
So what are you saying that was sealed there?
Well, the sealing, people didn't comprehend that Christ is leaving one compartment of the sanctuary and entering the second one.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't know everybody's name, so if I don't address you by your name, I'm sorry. I'll probably forget. So Sister Angela is saying the unsealing is the information that Christ is going to move from one apartment to the next.
Yeah.
But they don't know that at the time of the end. They don't even know that at the close of probation. So that's not what's being sealed up.
The deadly wound then?
The deadly wound's been sealed up?
No. That's what they understood in 1798.
Okay.
The understanding of the beginning of the prophecies.
What does that mean?
Well, they were able to identify different dates that brings to the cleansing of the sanctuary.
Does everybody understand what my sister's saying? No one's understood what you've said.
The understanding of Ezra 7, when the decree was for them to be able to calculate the days of the 2,300 days.
Does everybody understand that? Does that make sense? Yeah? So what's been sealed up is not day for a year. Day for a year has been understood at least for a few hundred years before this, properly. So what's been sealed up is the relation of the prophecy to time. So time is what's been sealed up. And specifically what's been sealed, I think my sister is saying the start date. Yeah? Which is why she's taken us to Ezra. So what's been sealed up is the start, not the duration. And if you have the start and you already know the duration, what do you know? You know the end. Yeah? So you know when the sanctuary is going to be cleansed. That's what's being unsealed at the time of the end. Is that okay? And before that there was darkness. And the darkness was created by what? Okay, is there an absence of light in this history?
No.
There is not an absence of light. There's plenty of light here. So what produces the darkness? persecution. It's the introduction of error mingled with the truth. That's what produces this darkness. It's not that there isn't any light. And we're going to read some. We're going to go through a passage in early writings to show us that there is light here. So there's light, but it's the introduction of error with that light that produces this darkness, and we refer to that as the mystery of iniquity. Yeah. So we'll call this darkness. And then there's a time at the end, close of probation. So there's an increase of knowledge. Does everybody conceptualize and understand what that means, this increase of knowledge? Yeah? Okay, so what does it mean then?
Increase of knowledge on the prophecies of Daniel and Revelation.
Okay, so it's specific to whatever's this reform line is dealing with. In Millerite history, it's specifically about what? The judgment hour. It's all about judgment. There's going to be an increase of knowledge on judgment. And though we may not have realised it, that's what our increase of knowledge is on about as well. Our reform line is very, very similar to the reform line of the Millerites, and we're having an increase of knowledge on judgment. Yeah? After the increase of knowledge, what's the next waymark? The formalisation of the message. And what does that mean? Sorry? Okay, so if we're going to say it's a coming of understanding, I'm going to say that's an increase of knowledge. They're coming into an understanding. Go ahead.
Putting it together, like it's formalized, you have something to present.
Okay, so we can't define formalisation with the word formalise. No, try. They're putting it together into a...
Form a topic or they're presenting a message to give people.
Okay.
Isn't it when they have like some sort of document or something set to share the package, basically?
Okay.
Would it be a confirmation, some kind of evidence that shows them that what they're studying is true? It's confirmation?
So what is the what would the confirmation be?
Like a fulfillment?
Of what?
Prophecy?
So what's the fulfillment of prophecy in Millerite history?
Ovid? The fall of the Ottoman Empire?
That's not here.
Not there.
No. Brother? Eric?
Putting it in a way that one can understand, or people can understand where that message is put away where people can understand.
Brother Theodore?
A person is chosen who then gives that message. So there would be a person.
Okay. So the person's already been chosen before this stage.
Giving that message.
So the person's giving the message. So we're identifying the person. Do they really agree with that? We're gonna see the person come now. Yeah. Are we sure about that? This is where the first time you see the person.
You see them at the time at the end.
Okay. So
Because they're chosen.
so what we're saying is here. What changes here
The
then?
person is ordained to give this message in some way.
Okay. So the person's ordained. And we said it's going to be packaged. Any other thoughts? Is this all straightforward? This is not new to anybody. Okay, let's pull back to this time at this increase of knowledge. Let me take this out. Let's put some dates here for Millerite history. This is when? And this is? Okay, why do we say 1816 to 1818? Why are we marking that? Okay, so this is where he's studying the Bible, and now we're marking William Miller. Anyone else? And what we're marking for the formalisation? So we normally mark 1831, 1833. What does 1831 mark? What does 1833 mark? Okay, so what would the falling of the stars be to having the packaged piece of information? So he actually gets his credentials in 33. So what's happening in 31?
He's presenting publicly, or just to other people.
So it's his first public presentations. This is when he starts to present publicly. Yeah? Are we all okay with that?
1816 to 1818, he only studied 2 years. I don't understand.
Okay, so what we're saying about 1816 to 1818?
Well, he was, the book of Daniel, I think, was on, well, no, he had all that information. It was all coming together on his methodology of studying.
Does that answer your question?
And then after the 2 years, he started to go.
I've noticed not everybody's got their computers and searching quotes, and this is tomorrow. Please bring your devices or whatever you need so we can search things on the fly and address things. Unless someone can pull one up now, it's easy to find. Just put 1816, 1818 in. It'll tell you what's happening there. 2 years of intense study leads him to what?
Getting as a chain of truth.
So by 1818, what does he know?
3 days.
He knows the 3 dates.
He knows the day and the abomination of desolation.
Okay, so he knows the 3 dates. The 3 dates are
677.
another person. Sorry? Another person?
And 1843.
No. Oh, I was hoping for another person.
Oh, yeah, 1260.
Okay, so 1818. What else do we pick up from 1818? What date is he going to aim for with those 3 start dates?
1843.
1843. And where am I going to go with this? So what does he say in 1818? He already knows now that in about 25 years what's going to happen. Sanctuary is going to be cleansed, Christ is going to come. So he already knows that that's what's being marked. And then what's he going to do from 1818 to 31? Okay, he's going to do what we do. That's putting it nicely, struggle with what he procrastinates. He's under conviction for a long time, and he just sits on this information, essentially not doing much. So by the time he gets to 1831, then he begins to preach. You've probably all heard about the story where he makes this deal with God and he gets tricked and deceived into preaching. Yeah? So, why is 1818 important? What do we pick up from 1818? So, what do we notice there straight away? It's a doubling. So you already have a doubling. And where do we normally place doublings? At the second angel's message. Yeah? We normally place a doubling at the second angel's message. So people are going to take this 1818 and they're going to throw it into the future, somewhere over here. But you can see it's right back here. And what's 1818 going to give us? Now, people struggle with this, but I think it's today I do. Maybe a few years ago I wouldn't, and I guess people still don't find this acceptable. To change these things into dates. Sorry, these dates into Bible verses. So I don't know if people have a problem with that. For?
For what you pronounced.
Okay.
The whole, but it's this big section here. It has all those dates and stuff.
One paragraph?
It's William Miller, AD 1112. I mean, I was
Which one?
this one.
Okay, so I'm just going to read this. William Miller's Apology and Defence, page 11, paragraph 2. From a further study of the scriptures, I concluded that the 7 times. What he's going to do is going to explain that he's got these three dates: 677, 457, and 508. And the 3-time prophecies that go with that, which he's going to mark, he's going to call the 7 times, 2300 days, and the 1335. Then he says, reckoning all these prophetic periods from the several dates assigned by the breast chronologists for the events from which they should evidently be reckoned, they all would terminate together about AD 1843. I was thus brought in 1818 at the close of my 2 years of study, to the solemn conclusion that in about 25 years from that time, all the affairs of our present state would be wound up. Are we okay with that? William Miller's Apology and Defence, WMAD 11.2.
Just something about the 1818 symbol. Like, people don't have a problem using, like, Revelation 9:11 or Testimonies Volume 9, page 11 as a symbol. So, why is there a problem using 1818 as a symbol?
Maybe in this class there isn't. I'm hoping there won't be. So, let's change this into a Bible verse, 1818, and let's go to the book of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy 18:18. Deuteronomy 18:18 is not some obscure Bible verse. It's been in, we talk about this, we use this Bible verse quite often. But I want us to see some things about it, not things that we haven't already recognised. But I want to show that it's the placement of this verse and its application is not what you might normally consider it to be. Deuteronomy 18:18. I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren like unto thee, and will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I command him. And it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto my words, which he shall speak in my name, I will require it of him. So, what's this verse saying? Let's break it. Let's break it down in a bit more detail. Or you can give a quick overview, then we'll break it down. Then give us the overview that you wanted to give.
Just that there's going to be a messenger raised up, and he's going to give a message that's sent by God, and the people.
I didn't hear what you said.
People should listen to what he says.
Okay, so the Lord's going to raise up a messenger. So if you're going to place this verse with the date 1818, we know the messenger's raised here. So you already know the person before the formalization of the message. It's already been chosen. Are we okay with that? How do we normally apply this verse? Not we, Christendom, Adventism, the church. Not how we would in this message. When it says, I will raise them up a prophet. Who is the prophet that's being raised up?
John the Baptist, Jesus.
So someone said John the Baptist, and someone said Jesus. So why did you say John the Baptist this is referring to?
That's just what I had heard from other people.
Okay. Why are you saying this is Christ?
Because of the capital P in the verse.
Okay. I hadn't thought about that. Maybe that's... Yeah. Any other reasons? No. I'm saying, how do Adventists, Christians, normally apply... There's a classic application of this verse. It can't be William, it wouldn't be William Miller. And the white comments on this in Desire of Ages, but we're not going to go there unless someone can find the passage. I think you can, if you put the phrase, I think that prophet, it'll probably come up. So when John's raised up, people are going to ask who this person is. And they're going to refer back to this passage. Why are they going to do that for? Why, when John rises up as this staunch reformer, why are they picking on him?
They expect the Messiah.
Why are they expecting the Messiah?
The prophecies point to him.
Which one?
Elijah.
Not Genesis 3:15. Why are they expecting the Messiah? When Jesus says the time is fulfilled, what time has been fulfilled? Sorry?
The kingdom of God.
No, he says the time.
70 weeks.
The 70 weeks. So everybody in Israel knows the 70 weeks is up somewhere. And they've got the same problem as the Millerites have got. Not quite sure when the start date is. Why don't they know when the start date is? I think they have studied.
It's the birth of the Messiah.
Sorry?
They have the events wrong. It's the birth of the Messiah that marks the
Marks the what? The birth of the Messiah marks the what?
time of the end.
Okay, but the prophecy doesn't take you to the time of the end, does it? The 70 weeks isn't the birth of the Messiah. But maybe they're not even clear upon that. Remember, they've got 3 decrees to deal with. If you didn't know any better, which decree would you probably go for? First, second, or third? You'd probably go for the third. You may not be totally sure what's happening. So it's not that clear cut how to actually calculate the start date of this thing, which is the same problem that we had, that the Millerites have. So they're not sure where this date is. They're not even sure what happens at the end of it exactly. It's all a bit obscure. But they all know something's happening. Yeah? This is exactly the time frame or the same dynamics as Moses. They know, what do you know about Moses?
Desire of Ages, page 135.2. It says, the rabbis continued their questioning.
Oh, did you have it there? Oh, you're reading. Oh, sorry, you're reading it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The rabbis continued their questioning, why baptizest thou then, if thou be not the Christ, nor Elias, neither that prophet? The words, that prophet, had reference to Moses. The Jews had been inclined to the belief that Moses would be raised from the dead and taken to heaven. They did not know that he had already been raised. When the Baptist began his ministry, many thought that he might be the prophet Moses risen from the dead, for he seemed to have a thorough knowledge of the prophecies and the history of Israel.
Okay, so they've got. You can see they've been in darkness because now they're thinking about reincarnation. They've got really strange views of the state of the dead, and now they think it can be one of 3 people. Can you give the reference again? Desire of Ages.
135.2.
135.2. They think it's either Moses resurrected or Elijah. Why would they pick Elijah? Because he'd been translated. And remember, the sons of the prophets were looking for him, so they think he may have come back. And why do they think he's going to come back? Because prophecy declared that he was. Which prophecy? Or which book?
Malachi.
Malachi. So in Malachi it says Elijah's going to come back. So they're expecting him to come back. And now they're also expecting the Messiah to come. Daniel chapter 9, 70 weeks. So this is the range of options that they've got. So they know a prophet is coming back. And so it's not John the Baptist that they're expecting. You've got an option of Moses, Elijah, and Christ. Are we okay with that? And Sister Alison said it was who? Who did she say it was? No, she didn't say it was Elijah. She said it was William Miller. Okay, and I said it couldn't be in the application that we were making it. But she's saying that this is William Miller. So what does that teach you about who William Miller is? Who is William Miller? He's all of these. William Miller is Moses and Elijah and Christ. Are we okay with that? The reason why I want us to see that is because we often put the coming of Christ later on. And he's already here. So, I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren, like unto thee. What's the next part of the verse say?
And will put my words in his mouth.
We'll stop there. What does that mean?
God will speak through them in God's mouth.
No, it doesn't mean that. So it says he's going to do what? Put my words in his mouth. So who is the my? God. And who is the his? The prophet, yes? Okay, so what does that symbology mean? I will put my words in his mouth. A message? We're going to see that later on in the verse. What does this mean? Is that... I don't know if it's a problem. Just a phrase. If I said, put my words in his mouth, you were going to say, oh, yeah, of course. No, that's not yet. There's no speaking going on. The prophet isn't speaking. What's the prophet doing? So he's eating. So the prophet's eating. And he's eating way back here in the increase of knowledge. What's he eating? He's eating the message. Okay, so let's go to some passages. So we're going to go to Ezekiel. We'll put it here. Ezekiel 3. Let's find where it is in Ezekiel.
Ezekiel 3:2 says, so I opened my mouth, and he caused me to eat that roll.
Sorry? Let's drop back to verse 7 of chapter 2. So if we just go round, if you've got your Bibles open, we'll go 7 to then up to verse 2.
And thou shalt speak my words unto them, whether they will hear or whether they will forbear, for they are most rebellious.
But thou, son of man, hear what I say unto thee. Be not thou rebellious like that rebellious house. Open thy mouth and eat that I give thee.
Verse 9, someone?
And forbearing.
And he spread it before me, and it was written within and without, and there was written therein lamentations and mourning and woe.
Moreover, he said unto me, Son of man, eat that thou findest. Eat this roll, and go speak unto the house of Israel.
So I opened my mouth, and he caused me to eat that roll. So we'll put 2:7 to 3:2. So we've got Ezekiel doing this work here. And where do we normally place this? We normally place this at 9:11. So I'm not saying it's correct to place it at 9:11. We have a lot of witnesses and evidence to show that. But he's already eaten it before this event. Where else would we go for this? Revelation 10. Should you read it for us?
And I went unto the angel and said unto him, Give me the little book. And he said unto me, Take it and eat it up, and it shall make thy belly bitter, but it shall be in thy mouth sweet as honey.
So we have Ezekiel and Revelation. There are some other stories that we could go to, but there are two primary ones, unless anybody has another one they want to share.
Jeremiah, is it 15? 16? Where it says thy word was found.
Okay, we'll go to Jeremiah. So we read that.
Thy words were found, and I did eat them, and thy word was unto me the joy and the rejoicing of mine heart. For I am called by thy name, O Lord God of hosts.
So we normally place these verses. Where do we normally place these verses? Yeah, we can normally place them at the empowerment of the message. But we can see it's all being traced back into this history here, even before the formalization of the message comes. So let's just finish off Deuteronomy. I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren, like unto thee, and I will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. So here's the last part. After you've eaten it, then you're going to speak. When we went to Ezekiel chapter 2, what did we notice? We just read over it. We didn't actually look at it. So just keep your hand in that passage, and we'll just quickly review again Ezekiel chapter 2, verse 10, the last verse. What does it say that's on the roll? Okay, so Lamentations, Mourning and Woe are three messages. So what must those three messages be? There must be three angels' messages. Yes? But you see they're all negative. Because why are they all in a negative here? Because they're a rebellious house. There are no good people in this house. What is this house? God's church. This is the house of Israel. This is God's church. So there are no good people in God's house according to this passage. What problems does that cause you? Or does it cause you problems, or you worried? Sorry?
Yes, it does.
Why?
Well, because you're trying to present the truth to people that you would presume would be the most receptive to it. and they turn out to be among the most opposed to it.
So these are any of these people going to accept this message?
Are they going to?
According to Ezekiel, they're not, because it says they're all rebellious. So this is a rebellious house. So you have to go to another story to actually find the flip side of this, because this is not the entirety of the story. Yeah? So what's he going to do? Is everybody reasonably familiar with these passages? Yeah? What's he going to do? He's going to go and give a message, and the imagery that's portrayed here is what? When he does that? That's in chapter 3. How does it portray when he goes and sees them?
They will not hear.
They will not hear. And the imagery is forehead against forehead. Yeah? Are we familiar with that? Which verse is it?
Verse 9.
Okay, let's read verse 8. Let's read verse 8, and then if it's verse 9 as well.
Behold, I have made thy face strong against their faces, and thy forehead strong against their foreheads.
9.
As an adamant is harder than flint, I will make thy forehead. Fear them not, neither be dismayed at their looks, though they may be a rebellious house.
Okay, so what's verse 8 and verse 9? Chapter 3. Ezekiel chapter 3, verses 8 and 9. Why is this forehead to forehead being discussed?
Well, that's where you receive spiritual things, supposedly, in the frontal lobe.
You say supposedly, you don't believe it?
Well, because some people are not receiving spiritual, the correct spiritual.
Well, none of these people are going to, because they're rebellious, but that's where it is.
I was on the same thing. This is where in Jojo that you receive the message. And so if you don't receive it intellectually or spiritually, obviously you reject it.
What is an adamant? A diamond. What's that portraying to you when it says, I've made your face strong against their strong, and thy forehead strong against their forehead, as an adamant?
Well,
So your forehead is an adamant, and theirs is what? Does it say that?
well, it harder than flint. That's it. But they're so rebellious. It's like an adamant. It's like a diamond. So
It doesn't say that though, does it? You've got two foreheads. One is what? One is an adamant and one is flint. So you've got to have a harder forehead than theirs. Why?
Because you're marking them.
Because what is an adamant? It's a diamond, and what is a diamond? It's not this. It's not like sheet diamond. It's not like flint, some stone wall.
Doesn't adamant mean that you're not going to be moved from what you understand? You're adamant. I'm adamant of you.
Yes, that's how we might use that word today. The word adamant, and sometimes it causes us problems.
But you're settled into something that you're not going to be moved. And that's our ultimate goal.
But the word adamant here doesn't really mean that, although it achieves that result.
Kind of. If it's a diamond.
It's a play on words. I'm happy to use play on words,
Okay.
but it's marking a diamond against a flint.
in the Hebrew, it's in the original sense of pricking or a thorn. So we are a thorn in the side.
Okay, so it's talking about pricking. Were you saying something, Tiffany, about this? Were you going to say something more? I wasn't sure if I cut you off. No? Okay, so what's this pricking going to be doing? Why do you need a diamond point? To do what? To scratching. So this is it's all in that word adamant. It means to scratch or to mark. So you need an adamant to mark flint. So what's this referring to then? This is the sealing. So this is the marking. Positive or negative? This is negative. So this is the work of Elijah to come to people and put a mark upon them. And if it's a sealing, if it's a marking and it's negative, why is it negative? Because they're a rebellious house. It says they won't accept.
If you go to verse 18 of chapter 3, it tells you that.
So you read that, Sister Alison. 3:18.
When I say unto the wicked, thou shalt surely die, and thou givest him not warning, nor speakest to warn the wicked from his wicked ways, to save his life, the same wicked man shall die in his iniquity, but his blood will I require at thine hand.
19, she meant.
Pardon me?
She meant 19.
Should I read it? Okay. Yet if thou warn the wicked, and he turn not from his wickedness, nor from his wicked ways, he shall die in his iniquity, but thou hast delivered thy soul.
Okay, so I don't know if that quite does it for anybody, but it says it's a rebellious house and they're not going to listen, and he's going to go and have to mark them. And to mark a hardened forehead, you need diamond. Yeah? So where's the flip side of this? This is Ezekiel chapter 9. Everybody familiar with Ezekiel chapter 9? It's exactly the same scenario, exactly the same situation, but these foreheads are what? Doesn't say in the chapter. What kind of foreheads would these be? These are nice and soft foreheads. They're not like flint, so you don't need an adamant to deal with these ones. Yes. Because it doesn't, in chapter 9, it doesn't talk about the man having a forehead, but he's going to go and do a work with the foreheads. What verse are we in? 4. So let's read verse 4.
And the Lord said unto him, Go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof.
So how do you mark them here in this chapter? Let's go a couple of verses before. How do you mark them? With what? With which verse?
Verse 2.
So let's read verse 2 first. Verse 2.
And behold, 6 men came from the way of the higher gate, which lieth towards the north, and every man a slaughter weapon in his hand. And one man among them was clothed with linen with a writer's inkhorn by his side, and they went in and stood beside the brazen altar.
So, before we move on, let's just take one step back. We said this prophet is Moses, Elijah, and Christ. Are we okay with that? Who else is it that we've just seen? It's Ezekiel. Who else is it? Jeremiah. And we didn't see it was Daniel. We saw it's John. No, I'm just... maybe it is. I don't know. I hadn't thought about that. Because I don't need to read any other prophets. So you've got Moses, Elijah, Christ, Ezekiel, John, and Jeremiah. All of these people are eating. So all of these people are who? Miller. Or Miller is all of these people. Are we okay with that concept? That William Miller symbolises all of these prophets. Not only all the prophets, but Christ himself. And if he represents 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 prophets, what do you know?
He must be a prophet.
He must be a prophet. What does that mean? Effective every vision.
It means
He represents
everything.
all the prophets. So he represents all the prophets that the scriptures bring to view. Just from this simple study, you can see the methodology of line upon line already brought to view here. So you're forced to go and study scripture using this repetition of history or line upon line, just by seeing that he has to symbolize all of these prophets. So you have to go into the story of Ezekiel, you'd have to go into the story of Jeremiah, and you would know that the story of Jeremiah is what? It's the story of Millerite history. Yeah? Does that make sense? I think someone had their hand up first, back somewhere. Oh, sorry, yeah, it's through. Question?
Well, I kind of see it now that it's in verse 2 where it says the one man. The one man is Miller, Moses, Christ, Ezekiel, John, and Jeremiah. Who are the other?
Okay, so we'll deal with who these men are later on in our studies.
But what do you say that the 5 prophets will represent 5 prophets and represented all?
I don't understand. Is that a question? I don't understand what you're saying, sorry.
Well, you said something about the 5 prophets that mean it's every.
Oh, okay. So I said if it represents these 5 prophets or these 6 men, then it must represent everybody. In fact, Tiffany said that. I didn't say that. So why did you say that?
I guess because it's the effect of everybody. Like, all the prophets are speaking about the same thing. And if you have, I don't know. I actually don't know.
Okay, you said effect of every vision. Where did you get that from? What is the effect of every vision? Sorry? I thought I heard you say Ezekiel. You said Ezekiel. You can't say nothing. Ezekiel? Ezekiel 12? 21 to 23. So we won't read it, but that's where she gets this effect of every vision.
Could you also say, because 5 is a symbol of the end of the world?
Yeah, but I'm reticent to say we've only picked up 5 so far. There are more than 5 prophets. It's 6 including Christ. Yeah, that's why she said 5. But if it's 5, you have to go to all the minor prophets. You're going to get a whole list. There's many, much more than 5 prophets. So why do we say if there's 5, it must be all? Because what's the principle we're using? No, don't get hooked up on the 5. We've got Agabus, we've got Obadiah, Hosea. There's prophets everywhere.
So I want to know why.
So do I.
It's reason line upon line.
Okay, line upon line.
It's the idea that 2 or 3 witnesses establish everything.
Okay, so let's leave line upon line. What's the principle we're using?
2 or 3 witnesses.
You only need 2 witnesses. Or 3 witnesses. On the testimony of 2 or 3, a thing is established. So that's the principle that Tiffany was picking up. The effect of every vision. Because you only need 2 testimonies to prove something. And we've got 6 here. And we just need to mark the books. And you'll see every single story has to be there. So, because we've shown it's 6 people here. So you know it has to be every person. 2 or 3 witnesses. That's the principle that we're using. Is that okay? So we've got our 2 classes, one from Ezekiel 2 and one from Ezekiel 9. In Ezekiel 9, you don't need an adamant. All you need is a feather, basically, and an inkhorn. So you can gently mark those that sigh and cry for the abominations that are done. Is that all okay? So there's a lot of information packaged in this history even before you get to formalization of the message. The person's already been selected. He's already considered to be a prophet. And we went to Ezekiel 2 and 3, but we didn't go back to Deuteronomy 18, 19. Deuteronomy 18:19, it says, "And it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto my words, which he shall speak in my name, I will require it of him." So whose words are all of these that are being spoken? These are all God's words, yeah? It says it clearly in verse 19. What does it mean to require it of him? To search out? Holding them accountable. Has anybody got their Strongs up to check that what that means? To say that it's going to be required of you.
It's going back to that passage from Ezekiel, where if you don't point out somebody's sins, it's on your hands.
Is everybody okay with that? Sister Ruth?
The word means to properly to tread or frequent, usually to follow, for pursuit or search, by implication to seek or ask, specifically to worship. Then it's just got other things like ask, care for, inquire, make, inquisition, question, require, research, seek, surely.
Give me one word that the word require means. Another one? Search. What does it mean now? I will require it of him. Who's the him?
The person.
The recipient or the giver, not the prophet, the person who's speaking to. So the person he's speaking to, what's it saying of him? I require it of him. Is he talking about the person who's the prophet or the person who the prophet's speaking to? We think it's the person who he's speaking to, not the prophet. So what does it mean, I require it of that person? So there has to be a following or an acceptance or a searching of what's being spoken to him. He's required to do that. It's not really a good way of saying it. He's required because they use the word require. So I'm using it inappropriately. Does that make sense? It doesn't make sense. Someone explain that then. When these prophets raised up, what is demanded of everybody to whom he speaks or communicates? For them to search out what the prophet is saying. You can't just shut your ears up and say, this is not my problem, it's nothing to do with me. Everyone is going to now be required. And someone said judged. I don't know who said that. So that's what the implication is. When the prophet comes and gives this message, you can't escape it. Ignorance is not an option. Essentially, that's what that's showing us. So way back here, when the prophet's raised up, this is all the implications of this message. This is why we teach it's a life and death message. Everybody is required to do something about this. You can't escape it. Okay, so we're at the formalization of the message. What happens after the formalization?
Empowering.
The empowerment. What does that mean? This is where our message begins to get complicated, I think. What does it mean, empowered?
There's an event that takes place that confirms that what's been studied is correct and accurate.
So you've already changed the word from empowered to confirm. Anyone else? What does empower mean?
It's like now there's a second witness because the time of being is one and the empowerment is the second.
So a confirmation you're saying the second witness. We're coming back to this principle here. Anyone else? We'll conceptualize it this way. That's what power means. What happens? Sorry? How does it give force? And what gives force? What is the empowerment that gives it force? One second. Sorry? Okay, so you're saying the confirmation gives the message force. Okay, what is the it? Which message? Okay, so all this message back here, this is going to be confirmed here. Yeah?
Yeah, this is what I was going to say, because the message itself gives the power. The power lies in the message that you're bringing.
Which is where? On this line. Oh, here. Yeah. So there's power here. Because the message has got power in and of itself. And this is going to confirm it.
I just have a question. I was always under the impression that the confirmation was the day for the year. That was confirmed?
Okay, is that the question?
Yeah.
But
it's not?
Why did you say it's not?
Well, because you said that that's not what was sealed.
I mean, you said that's not what was sealed.
Yeah.
You said when you were writing
So that was already known, they already knew that. And I understand sort of that, but I thought that that was what was being confirmed, that the methodology day for year was actually confirmed.
So how are we going to explain that?
Well, the event that took place,
Yes.
where it says gave impetus, which was that force behind the message. And because of that, everyone was convinced that there was an enlightenment, there was an understanding of the message. I'm just giving you that as an example of what the empowerment can do.
Did that answer your question? It didn't answer her question.
It's the outplaying of the message. The message that is given, the empowerment is the result. It is the revelation of the message. Well, or the principle in this particular case. The day for year when the empowerment came, it's the proof in the pudding.
The year-day principle wasn't sealed, because people understood it before 1798, but it was one of the foundations of Miller's message. And not everyone believed it was true, so it was empowered on August 11th, 1840.
Does that make sense?
Well, that's what I thought. That's what was confirmed.
Yeah, but do you think I've said something that opposes that idea that you already had?
No, I was just curious because if we're dealing with Malarian history, I guess I was wondering if it was a confirmation of something different or if that was it.
Okay, so
So that is it?
say that again.
People understood it before 1798.
Understood what?
The year-day principle.
So we've got day for a year here already.
So it wasn't sealed, because people understood it. But it was empowered.
What's happening here then?
The Miller's Judgment Hour message, which is based upon time.
So he's going to use this
Yeah.
that everybody already knows,
Yeah.
and what's unsealed?
The commencement.
the commencement, the 3 dates, the commencement of the chain of truth. That's what's unsealed here, and he's going to use an existing principle to develop this theory, this model. And then what's confirmed here? It's confirmed that the methodology that he's using, day for a year, actually works.
Because of the event that took place was evidence that it worked.
Yeah.
And you put the first angel came down in 1798.
We haven't got there yet, so we're going to do that. And it gets a bit difficult when we got empowered. I'm going to put empowered the message.
Were the people doubting the year ago?
Were the people doubting the... back here, I don't think people were doubting it really. But when he starts using it, then people begin to... Why do people begin to doubt it when he's using it?
Because you actually making a prediction that this is going to happen, and it did not look plausible at all at that time.
Why?
Because they were a powerful nation.
Who was?
The Ottoman Empire. They were a powerful nation, and so they could foresee.
We're in Millerite history. Where are you? Sorry. I'm lost where you are.
I'm sorry. I'm still at the illustration that I was giving.
Okay, so you're back here, but I think my sister's back here.
Okay.
And your question was again?
Were people doubting?
Were people doubting day for a year?
They didn't want to believe that their judgment was coming. They wanted to doubt it. I mean, nobody wants to believe that you have to be sanctified.
So when you say coming,
Christ's coming.
do you mean... Because the way he frames it, he doesn't say it's coming, he's saying it's here,
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
in the present.
Like in
Even though he's saying in a few short years, but he frames it that it's a present thing that you have to deal with now.
Yeah.
And this is why people doubt it. It's not because they don't believe the words. When you start making present application to scripture verses, people become nervous. And this is what's happening in our movement today. It's exactly the same idea. That they don't want to accept a present fulfillment of something. And what theory have they developed to counter this? It's been in place for a long time. Yes? Sorry? And how do they do that? It's the millennium. So he's struggling against the millennium. This future application of Christ. Because Christ is going to come, but he's going to come spiritually. And he's going to address that it's literal. Yeah? So, what comes after the empowerment? This is the impetus. The empowerment is the impetus. Is that a nice way of saying it? Is the impetus? Yes? No? I want to make sure we're all on board. If you're not happy, don't let's press on, because you end up building on sifting sand if you're not careful, which is what tends to happen.
You're not bringing down the angels? Another angel comes down.
We haven't put it in the framework of angels. We've just put it in a framework of words.
Message, though, but another message comes.
So I'm asking what happens next. You're saying another message comes. Yeah. Okay, but before that.
Church growth.
Sorry?
Church growth. I mean, directly after the church growth.
Okay, so that's a consequence of this, but I'm asking what the event is. So no, that's the historical event that happened here. Habakkuk 2. So here's Habakkuk 2, the foundation. Are we familiar with that? That there's a foundation that's laid here. What is the foundation? Okay, so she pointed to 2, but there's only 1 in this history. So it's the chart. Okay, but what is the foundation? That's what it is, but conceptually, what's going on here? What is this foundation?
Messages from 1798 until now. This is what is message.
Okay. Someone say something?
And we were told that on the first chart that the two angels' messages were made plain, and that if they were accepted, that it would make way for people, prepare people to accept the third message. And so,
When you say we're told,
yes, Sister White says in this further prophecy that on the 43 chart that the first two messages were made plain, making way for people to accept the message of the third.
so do you have that reference?
I'll do it.
Okay. We'll find that reference.
Everything on the 43 chart is William Miller's studies from prior to when it was made. So those are all the things William Miller had used to
So that's what Sister Alison said. I think she said they get all of this and they put it into this document. What does that sound like? If you get all this information and put it into a document, sounds like a formalization. Yeah. So there's this close affinity to the formalization and the foundation. We're beginning to see, if you haven't noticed, that everything that we think's happening here is already happened here. So, is there anything new that's been put here?
some, but not much.
Okay, so there's just some tweaking, some refinement. Okay?
This is taken from 16 MR, page 207. It says here, on our next conference was in Fairhaven. Brother Baint and wife were present. It was quite a good meeting. On our return to Brother Nichols, the Lord gave me a vision and showed me that the truth must be made plain upon tables, and it would cause many to decide for the truth by the three angels' message, with the two former, meaning the messages, being made plain upon tables.
Everybody okay with that?
The quote from Great Controversy.
That says what? Before you read it to us.
It's about the 43 chart in the 1842.
Saying what?
It's the visions illustrating Daniel and Revelation, and from Charles Fitch. Just it talks about the visions.
Just give us a reference, we won't read it.
Okay, Great Controversy 392.2.
So this is, all of these two are about the foundations. So we can see that this foundation here is a formalization, if you like, of this message, but we've already got this before. So there's a close relationship between this event and this event. Can everybody see that? These two are tied together. This foundation, what thoughts and ideas does it bring to your mind when you think about foundations?
When you've got verse that says, no foundation can, no man laid except Christ Jesus.
Try and find that for us. Is that what you were going to say? So this is who? Christ. Sorry?
1 Corinthians 3:11.
So let's read that. Sorry? 1 Corinthians 3:11. Sister Annabelle?
For other foundation can no man lay than
Jesus Christ.
Okay, so Ellen White's going to compare what? The 1843 chart with Christ. She talks about it being the foundation of her faith, this history, these messages. Yeah? No? You familiar with that passage?
It's the Rock of Ages.
Sorry?
She says it's the Rock of Ages.
It's the Rock of Ages. Because that's what you're supposed to build your house upon, a rock. Everybody okay with that? So the foundation, and we went through this over the weekend, brings to view the construction of a building. So you've got a building that's being built now. And this building is the temple. So once the foundation's laid, it's going to take 4 years to build this temple in Millerite history. Everybody okay with that? But we know that this foundation is connected to the formalization of the message. And the formalization of the message instructs you on how to build this foundation. Are we okay if we frame it that way? No? Yes? Did you not understand what I meant or said? Can someone express it in their own words? The blueprint. So this is the blueprint. This tells you how to do something. And this actually tells you to do what? This is actually the construction beginning. Are we okay with that? So I think Sister Muriel said that this empowerment does what? This great impetus comes to the movement. And when you have this great impetus, what's going to happen now? Sorry? It goes to every mission station in the world. Yeah? Now this movement's going to mushroom and blossom. It's going to grow rapidly. So that's what's been marked between this history and this history. It's very few in numbers, and now the numbers begin to grow and escalate. Are we okay with that idea? Yeah? This here, 1840, August 11th, we haven't proven that, I assume we all know that, is what event for us? August 11th, 1840, what event is this for us? So this is 9/11. So if it's 9/11, why haven't we got this mushrooming and huge growth of numbers?
People have rejected it.
But every reform line has to teach the same thing.
Well, sometimes things can be the opposite in reform lines.
Okay, so we're going to make it into a chiasm or a mirroring. So we're going to do that.
So in the Millerite reform line, it was global and then local. But in ours, it's local and then global. So it's the opposite.
Okay?
No, I got it backwards. So this.
Give it to again then, what you're saying. In Millerites, it's
The Millerite history, it started off in the United States
local,
and spread worldwide.
goes global.
Never mind. I
Okay. Anyone else?
Is it because we're not doing the work?
Because we're lazy.
Yeah. Not lazy.
We're rebellious.
Yes. No, I don't know. We're just not doing the work.
Okay, so let's address that issue. Are we not doing what what we're told to do? Is that what we think, that this isn't working? It can't be, because if that's the case, we don't even have a reform line. If you're saying we're not actually living or we're going to walking through this reform line, we have to rewrite some history.
Wasn't your question, why is it not exploding into the world?
That was my question.
Because we're going to the Adventist church right now.
I didn't say the word, I said exploding in numbers. Why isn't it numbers? And I'm asking the reason. So someone's saying there's a chiasm. Someone's saying that we're rebellious, I think you said.
Well, it goes back to Ezekiel, right? We'll tell them, but they won't hear.
Okay, so there's rebellion, there's a chiasm, and we're lazy ourselves. So we've got those three answers.
Because it's the church militant, and I was reading this morning that God does not now work to bring many in.
But this is the church militant. So they've got a church militant and then it works for them. Why is it not working for us?
Well, you've got the hiding taking place where, you know what I'm talking about?
I might do, but some people might not.
But we're Laodicean.
So we're Laodicean. Okay.
I can't think of any specific examples right now, but it's God's church is being hidden from everyone else from 9/11 to midnight.
So what's that going to do for us? We've only got a few minutes because I've got to be strict on time. You're not sure where you're going to go with that yet?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so this is where we're going to begin to go to explain this problem. Because we can't say Adventism is worse than these people, because that's not going to solve the problem. We can't say we've got this chiasm, so we'll just ignore the problem. And we can't say that we're all lazy, that we're rebellious, because that's not true either. So they're not the reasons why this hasn't worked, or it isn't going to work, or however we want to conceptualize it. Go ahead.
In the middle of history, we know, well, we told that history will repeat itself to the very letter. And we know that it's not based on time for us anymore. No, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll close it with this thought and pick it up tomorrow. So we're going to use this phrase, word, combining. It's the combining of the messages that's going to address this question. And we all said yes. So whoever said yes, I say, explain that then, because it's not that straightforward, I don't think. Let's close with prayer, but let's summarise before we've done this. What I'm trying to show, and the reason why I'm trying to show this is because at the prophecy call over the weekend, there were some questions that got brought up because of some strong positions that I brought forward which were different to people's ideas of what a reform line looks like. Specifically Acts 3:19, Acts 17:30. So there were questions that were brought up because of those two verses and how I was applying them. So we're just going over this as a review to see that there's a lot of things before the empowerment. So what we've seen, the empowerment of the message, sorry, not the empowerment, the time of the end, is an unsealing of the book of Daniel that's in relation to time, not events. It's in relation to time. And the thing that's been unsealed is not day for a year, it's the commencement of the chain of truth. And it's really important to see that, because this is one of the powerful arguments that we have that the 2520, as an example, is correct. Because that's what triggered their whole movement. It's the commencement of the chain of truth. And we don't realise that as Adventists. That's what was given to them. So once that happens, then the Lord is going to raise up a prophet by 1818. And this prophet represents every single prophet in the Scriptures. And this is a primary defence to show line upon line methodology is correct, and that every vision is going to be fulfilled in this history. Okay with that? And the every vision that's actually going to be fulfilled is this one here, the one that's of Habakkuk 2:2. They're connected when it talks about the effect of every vision and the vision of Habakkuk 2, because that's the vision that's being fulfilled. We didn't address that, but when it says the effect of every vision, the vision that's going to be fulfilled is actually a singular vision in Ezekiel chapter 12, verse 21. It's many prophecies all dealing with one event. It's the event of Habakkuk chapter 2. And then we get the formalization of the message. It's now put into a package that everybody can understand it. You could hand it to somebody and they could teach it. This prophet that's recognized here is all of these people, all the prophets, and it involves this work of receiving a message from God, this eating of this book. Then we dealt with the empowerment of the message, and the empowerment means a confirmation or a second witness that what was being presented here is correct. Then follows the foundation, and the foundation is just a repeat of, or a fulfillment of the formalization of the message. So in the way that it was brought up, that this was the beginning of a building and this was a blueprint. So these are the relationship between these events here. We've run out of time. Let's pray. Sister Tiffany, could you pray? And also for breakfast as well.
Okay. Father in heaven, Lord, I just want to thank you for this morning. Thank you for your words. We just ask, Lord, that as we spend time here over the next couple weeks, that you would just pour out your latter rain upon us, that we would understand the former and the latter, and that you would also be with us in our conversation throughout the day, and that you would bless the food that's being prepared, and that it may give us the nourishment that we need. We thank you, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen.